speculation is a dangerous pastime. Shout out to the KMFDM machine. He left a comment on our video. Do you know what video it was, Ryan?
The original Stan Lee video that we did a couple of months back.
That's right. We broke the story after the initial stuff was starting to like really heat up with Stan Lee. This guy's 95 years old and he's having the strangest couple years, unfortunately, last year, since the passing of his wife, Joan. And this was a comment left, and this, I think, kind of sums up why we haven't covered anything since then until today, because we have updates that we need to share. Frankly, because after reviewing our coverage and with the news that was broken today, a lot of our speculation was validated.
Yeah, there's been a lot of stories coming out since we did this original story too that we've decided not to talk about. We've had people even message us and ask us to go over this new Stan Lee stuff that's been happening over the past month or so.
Even some stuff that we didn't really touch on in the video.
Exactly.
That we didn't want to cover, but now with these new updates, we are going to. So Ryan, where do we start this story?
I'll get a brief rundown of the events of the past year. Starting on February 23rd, there was a wellness check performed at Stan Lee's house.
That's correct. That's the time that Max Anderson, his right-hand man, Keya Morgan called the police on Max Anderson at the home. That's where he was fired. Right, he was the right-hand man of Stan at the time.
There was claims of violence or something back then. It was weird.
Yeah, but the big thing was that he was fired as well as a number of the other staff.
Housekeepers and gardeners, like everybody.
Clean house.
It was weird. May 30th, like 2 weeks ago or so, second wellness check. Cops called to the house. This was the day that news broke about there were armed gunmen at Stan's house. Cops were called. Helicopters sent out. It was a big deal. It was a real big deal. Scary. Scary headlines to read.
It's crazy. It's like, it seems like a Law and Order story.
Sure. If you want to. I wouldn't know.
You're not a Law and Order fan?
I watch good TV.
It's like, I swear, you're going to go like June 1st, and it's going to go dum 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 dum.
June 1st, 2 days after the whole helicopter thing, Stan retweets a happy birthday message from Keya Morgan to Marilyn Monroe. That's fine, but then Stan tweets something himself about Marilyn Monroe's birthday, and it's just weird. It was like that Harry Potter tweet he sent out that kind of feels like it wasn't maybe from the hands of Stan.
Stan has gone out of his way to say that this is his only presence on social media is Twitter. So
this is the only source you can trust.
Exactly. So it's strange when the only source that you can trust is he's posting stuff that you know the Stan isn't posting.
Sounds a lot like his best friend, supposedly. Very suspicious. Anyway, the next day, June 2nd, there's a video posted, Stan Lee on the couch thanking the fans. 1 million+ Twitter posts and messages since he's gone on Twitter.
Yes.
In the past month or so. Kind of feels, people in the comments are suggesting, it feels like a hostage video. I don't know how serious or sarcastic they're being, but it does kind of come across like, everything's fine here. I'm good. Thank you, guys. Excelsior. You know.
Did I say it right, Keya?
Yeah. It's just, it's sad. June 10th. This was Monday, so 3 days ago. Stan Lee posts a message saying, "My only partner and business manager is Keya Morgan." This was on Twitter. Keya replies, "Thank you, Stan. Knowing you is one of the greatest honors of my life. Like Michael Jackson always used to tell us, Stan is the greatest writing genius alive and the psyche of children around the world. Love you, brother." Heart emoji. Pray hands emoji. Interesting. The very next day, Keya Morgan's arrested.
It's just like, it sounds crazy.
Yeah.
It's like the next day.
He's arrested. Suspicion of filing a false police report on the May 30th event with the guns and the helicopters and the cops and all that.
Never happened.
Very strange. That brings us to the breaking news today. Where Stan
and he's out on bail.
Yeah, $20,000 bail. So there's that. Then today, Stan files a restraining order against Keya Morgan.
Boom. Boom. Can you say that our video, the speculation, the dangerous game that we're playing, that we were correct?
Kind of feels like it.
It's really feeling like it, because that's actually the reason why we made the video, is because everyone's pointing fingers equally at these 4 different people that all
like
seem to have
of people in Stan Lee's life.
Yeah, and there was one person that wasn't being pointed to enough, and that same person happened to be the one coordinating all of these scandals, which is the purpose of our video that we made.
Yeah.
So based off of all of this, there were 2 points that I felt like we should discuss, because now that now that Stan's been duped. Okay? Fair to say.
Yeah.
He filed a restraining order against the guy.
Something happened.
Something happened.
He came to the light.
He came to the light. So he's been duped. So now we can look at all these past actions by Stan with a new lens. Apparently, if we can't trust Keya, which based on Stan, he can't trust him either, well, we can't trust all the things that we're hearing for the last couple months, because all these allegations, if you watched our last video, were coming from Keya Morgan. He was the one calling the cops. He's the one who's dragging other people's names under the mud. Okay. Now, there's 2 points that are important to make. The first is that, I mean, obviously JC Lee has the most to gain out of this situation because
Stan's
she's
daughter. Yeah.
the heir, right? Keya Morgan also has a lot to gain as well. He specializes in essentially profiting off of celebrities who have passed away.
Yeah, he's, according to IMDb, he's got an IMDb page. According to that, he was Michael Jackson's close friend from the 90s up until his death, and he was on the news shows talking about him, like the day after he died. And it's hard not to look at Stan Lee right now and think that maybe Keya's like already got a suit picked out.
Yep. This guy's Mephisto, man.
He's pulling the strings, dude. It's creepy.
You made that reference in a
It was
prior
accurate.
video.
It was creepily
And
accurate.
it's creepily accurate. Very, very true. So that's the first point that we should reiterate, is that what does he have to gain? Well, that's what he does, is he profits off of the, kind of carrying on the legend, but profiting off of it. And it's clearly what he wants to do with Stan, or at least what he was trying to do until as of late. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I think that I wanted to bring up, because Ryan can attest. I thought about talking about this in the Stan Lee video, and we chose not to. I thought about doing an update video on this when more information came out. We decided not to do it then. But it's on the Stan Lee blood situation. TMZ broke that story that there were people in Stan Lee's life who supposedly stole blood or extracted blood and used it without his knowledge to be mixed with ink to have his signature then stamped with the ink on comic books to be sold. Now, this story, when it broke TMZ, this public went nuts. Like, you remember that?
It's a scary headline.
It is.
Blood-sucking leeches steal Stan Lee's blood. Like,
And the Stan Lee and their marketing team straight up denied having anything to do with it. The comic community was disgusted. People were freaking out. People were freaking out about him making appearances, let alone using blood to sign comic books,
True.
So it was causing a ruckus. And the Hollywood Reporter released some really interesting information, because Jerry Alvarez is the person that everyone's pointing to that conducted this whole thing,
involved, yeah.
that all this happened. He's saying his defense is, no, everybody knew about this, and I don't know what the big deal is. And we have Keya Morgan, who is trying to drag my name in the mud, saying that I was the one who coordinated this effort and that Stan didn't know and no one else knew, and I'm trying to profit off of it. And the Hollywood Reporter pretty much laid that out, that it's Keya versus Jerry about this whole controversy. And it happens to be Keya versus a lot of other players as well, because all these scandals have come up because of Keya.
Yeah.
Well, now we can't trust Keya. I want to bring up that blood thing because it's important if this person didn't do it, and no one's talking about this point, because when I read that headline, okay, you want to know the first thing I thought of? The first thing I saw about the story was that Stan Lee used blood to sign comics. That was the headline that I read. The first thing I thought of wasn't, there's people taking advantage of him, elder abuse. The first thing I thought of was in the a little story that I read in the Untold History of Marvel Comics. I read this years ago. I had it I found it on Audible. I re-downloaded it again and listened to it, and it's a really, really interesting story back when Kiss was being introduced in comics for right around the first time, and it's a story about Stan and Gene Simmons in Europe and really the rest of Kiss. They were chatting about marketing ideas and talking about the importance of publicity and doing things that are just crazy to get people to buy stuff. How that's actually more important than the content that you're making. How important it is to be able to market and sell. You gotta remember, a lot of people look at Stan Lee as a creator.
Yeah.
He's a businessman. This
First
guy's
and foremost, I would say that, yeah.
And that's kind of how we talked back then too.
Promoter.
It's like promoter, he's selling Excelsior. Well, this story is interesting because it talks about how they had this idea in Europe to like how crazy would it be if we had Kiss cut their hands and put blood into ink and then use the ink to sign these comics. These fucking kids are gonna go crazy. They're gonna buy all these comics. I swear, because that is like how the narrative is kind of told. It's like these guys are just, oh, they're gonna freaking lose their minds. We should do it. Man. You know what, man? You know what? We should go right now. We should go on a private jet and fly to New York.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. They got on a private jet, flew to Buffalo, New York. Traffic was stopped. Stan has talked about this. You can, if you type in on Google, I'll put the link in the description where Stan talks about this time. He doesn't get into a lot of detail because you can tell he's not proud of it. He's like, oh yeah, we stopped traffic. I mean, I just think if there was like a hospital, like someone was in a truck or something and trying to get to the hospital, like it was bad news. But
this is important.
Yeah. It's like, this is important. We have to get into the
we gotta drop the blood off.
You gotta do it. And that's what they did. They went to the printing place. They, the Kiss, not Stan didn't do it. He goes out of his way to say, no, it was just the 4 members that did it.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought of when I heard about this story in the first place. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like Stan.
Yep.
Like that sounds like something he would do. And then I proceeded to read like, oh no, like there's people like trying to profit off of him. Like maybe this
news
isn't it.
Made it seem like there were people sneaking in his bedroom at night and like pricking him with a needle.
And you know what I didn't hear about is anyone talking about this story. And this story is in the history of Marvel. Like this is stuff that's documented.
Nobody's read that.
And it's not something else talked about. Now, is it related to this particular event? Of course not. Like there's no proof suggesting that this is like, I'm not tying these together to say that this means that Stan knew about the blood. What I'm saying is that if we can't trust Keya Morgan, which Stan obviously doesn't anymore, we can't trust that his allegations that he made. And the allegations that he made was in defense of Stan Lee as a company. And if when this hit the public with such a negative view on it, they backed away from it. What I'm saying is there's potential that this may be untrue, and that this was just a poor marketing decision.
Calls everything else into question too.
It does. So anyways, that's my 2 cents, because Jerry Alvarez is, he's in hot water for a couple of things. This one thing, though, I'm not too sure of is something he should be in hot water for. I mean, I don't know. I don't like any of it. I'm just pointing out that we can't trust Keya, and if we can't trust Keya, we can't trust past things that's been said. Yep. This is something that's been said, and if we're going to move on forward in trying to understand what the situation, like what happened, well, we need to address past allegations.
Yep. This whole thing is just it's a mess. It's a
mess.
It's a lot to digest, a lot to process. We need your help, guys.
We do.
Comments. Digest with us.
What do you think? Put your answers in the comments below. What do you think about this whole situation? We would love to know. We may post your comments in a video in the future.
Of course.
We do appreciate your time, as always.
Geek responsibly, my friends.
Enough said. Thank you so much for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah, geekstreet101.com. That's my website where you can sign up for the mystery mail call where I send you comic books monthly.